President Biden recently had a viral exchange with his favorite Fox News frenemy, Peter Doocy, and after bluntly shutting him down, Biden went on to prove him wrong in the most humiliating fashion as he took a victory lap for succeeding in a major area where Donald Trump failed spectacularly. And we've got to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have many clips to talk about here because it just combines so many good things. Biden shutting down a Fox News reporter, which is always fun. A major success of the Biden-Harris administration, which has just been finalized. And it's also something that Donald Trump promised to do but failed to deliver. And the cherry on top of the sundae is a really good moment between President Biden and Vice President Harris in the form of a speech. So let's start with the most Schadenfreude-related stuff first, and just have this quick exchange in which Biden takes a question from Fox News reporter Peter Doocy, who's had a long-standing frenemy dynamic with the president. The president famously called him a stupid son of a bitch, then apologized, but they banter back and forth, and it's gone viral for years. Well, the president seems to be all out of a certain four-letter word now that he's no longer seeking re-election. He's just like bluntly shutting people down left, right, and center. And this was a pretty funny exchange which happened earlier today between the president and Ducey.
How much does it bother you that Vice President Harris might soon, for political reasons, start to distance herself from your economic?
She's not going to.
You don't think she's going to?
Mr. President, Trump said you're...
So I don't know if you heard that because the volume can be kind of strange, for these questions which are taken near the helicopter. But Peter Doocy says, hey, how does it make you feel that Vice President Harris might have to soon distance herself from you, basically because you're political deadweight? And Biden just says she's not going to. And then as Ducey tries to ask for follow-ups, and usually the president is quick to give them, Biden ignores him and moves on to the next person. And what's particularly funny about this is what happened next. So just a few hours later, the president appeared in his first official rally or first official public appearance with Vice President Harris since she became the presumptive Democratic nominee. And this is what happened.
And of course, I could speak all afternoon about the person that I am standing on this stage with.
So that is Vice President Harris, the person whom Fox News reporter Peter Doocy smugly said was going to distance herself from President Biden, and standing right beside President Biden, talking about how she could talk about President Biden positively nonstop, and then Biden receiving a standing ovation from a crowd in Maryland. So what this is that they spoke at a rally touting a major accomplishment of the Biden-Harris administration, which we have talked about in previous videos, but it was still in progress. Now it's been finalized, and it concerns the negotiation of prescription drugs by Medicare. And as a refresher, I want to remind you that Donald Trump promised to get this done. He did.
Even Republican Donald Trump in 2016 on the campaign trail made this promise.
Medicare. So we're the biggest drug buyer in the world. We buy drugs to make people better. All of that's fine. But we don't negotiate the price of the drugs. When it comes time to negotiate the cost of drugs, we're going to negotiate like crazy, folks.
But as president, he didn't do it. It took Joe Biden. It took the inflation.
He's right. That was progressive commentator Mehdi Hassan playing the clip, bringing the receipts Donald Trump promised, because I'm such a good negotiator. I'm a deal maker. This is such an obvious deal to be made. I'll get it done. We're going to negotiate like crazy, folks. And then, of course, he failed spectacularly. President Biden got it done, courtesy of the Inflation Reduction Act. So as the White House announced, if congressional Republicans had their way, Medicare couldn't negotiate drug prices and Big Pharma would still be taking advantage of Americans. But thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, millions of Americans will save $1.5 billion in and out-of-pocket costs because of the lower prices of these drugs, and taxpayers will save $6 billion in the first year alone. The first round of Medicare pharmaceutical price negotiations is concluded. The prices have been set, and that's this major announcement. We're going to play some more clips of the speech in which this announcement is talked about, as well as some other things about the election. But this is it in a nutshell. Right now, Americans pay 2 to 3 times more for prescription drugs than they would anywhere else. But the Biden-Harris administration beat Big Pharma, and after months of negotiations, Medicare has reached agreements to lower the price for 10 of the highest cost drugs. Eliquis for blood clots, list price was $521. It's dropped down to under half, $231. Januvia for diabetes, $527 is now down to $113, and so on and so forth it goes. The first tranche of 10 negotiated major Medicare drugs, they've been negotiated, the prices are settled. And this is what the vice president and the president are celebrating. So we're going to play some of these clips.
Thank you, Joe. Forward in our fight.
So that's the crowd celebrating President Biden for getting it done, as well as Vice President Harris acknowledging it. Another clip.
Government will also pay less than for prescription drugs. And think about what that means in terms of helping taxpayers save money, whether or not they take these medications. So all of this is to say, 2 years ago as vice president, I was proud to cast the tie-breaking vote that sent the bill that gave Medicare the power to negotiate and let it get to the president's desk. And I was proud when our president, Joe Biden, signed that bill into law.
So she cast the tie-breaking vote because there was no Republicans willing to vote for it. None. So they don't get any of the credit. And Biden, Harris, and Democrats get all of the credit. Make sure you remind people of that. Then the president steps up, and this is what he has to say about the vice president.
Folks, I have an incredible partner. The progress we've made, she's going to make one hell of a president.
The crowd agrees. See a couple more clips. He goes into a bit more detail as well about this drug price negotiation.
But that's not all the Inflation Reduction Act did. Last summer, I announced under that law, Medicare is going to select, and it's already passed law, 10 drugs a year, going up to 20 till we get every single drug every year. Drugs treat from everything from heart failure, blood clots, kidney disease, arthritis, blood cancers, and more. And today, I'm proud to announce that Medicare has reached agreement with all manufacturers on all 10 drugs selected in the first round of negotiations. The new lower prices for all 10 drugs will go into effect in January of 2026. Not this January, next January. Negotiations cut the price of these 10 drugs for Judy and others who are Medicare nearly 40 to 80%, depending which drug it is.
One major accomplishment. The other thing I'll tell you is that if Donald Trump becomes president, God forbid, because this deal doesn't go into effect until January 2026, so more than a year from now, if Trump wins the election, he's going to take credit for this. Hell, he might try to take credit for it even if he doesn't win the election, and even though it wasn't signed into law when he was president, just because they just agreed I intimidated them somehow to work with Medicare because I mentioned it once in 2016 and then forgot all about it. But that's precisely what's going to happen, folks. You mark that down. If, God forbid, Republicans win the White House, they're going to take credit for what Democrats and Democrats alone accomplished over Republican obstruction. Another clip.
And your soon-to-be senator. Where is he? It's a hell of a lot easier job than being a county executive. I was a county official. They expect you can solve every problem. You don't have the authority to do it. You don't have enough money. But I'm looking forward. I told her I'd campaign for or against whichever helped the most.
That's pretty funny. So he's referring to a Democrat running for Senator of Maryland. And he says that, hey, listen, I'll campaign for her or against her if I'm that unpopular and disliked, whichever one helps her the most. Pretty funny. Another clip.
You may have heard about the MAGA Republican Project 2025 plan. They want to repeal Medicare's power to negotiate drug prices. Let Big Pharma back to charge them whatever they want. Let me tell you what our Project 2025 is. Beat the hell out of them.
Great stuff. So listen, folks, we have, President Biden's presidency ends on January 20th, 2025. I think history will look back on it and say, certainly with respect to domestic policy, President Biden was the most accomplished 4-year president in American history, certainly more than Donald Trump ever was. And as a matter of fact, I think Biden had more legislative accomplishments than most presidents did in 8 years, and he did it in half the time. So it's good to see that he and the vice president are standing shoulder to shoulder, that she is using him on the campaign trail when and where she thinks he will be most appropriate. He seems perfectly content with that role. Hey, use me when you need me. Otherwise, I'll run the country from the White House while you go campaign vigorously. I love the fact that they are taking credit for this major accomplishment of the Democratic Party, the Biden-Harris administration, over Republican obstruction. And you and I and everybody else need to make sure that everyone's aware of this, that when prescription prices are negotiated, when their loved ones on Medicare or they themselves are on Medicare and they benefit from this, it's not because of Trump. It's not because of Republicans. It is 100% because of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the Democratic Party. And they should probably reward them with their votes. Just my opinion. You let me know what you think in the comments.